I got asked on TikTok if what's the difference between autism and trauma. There are many people who have both autism and trauma. And I was somebody who thought that I only had a bucket load of trauma, probably maybe a buffet. But then in healing, doing loads of EMDR, trauma release exercise, brain spotting, IFS, I did everything thinking, I'm going to fix who I am. And then I went on an autism training, and then I went on a female autism training, and I was like, oh, this is me. This is so who I am. And it kind of got my whole life to make sense, because suddenly I saw that the thing that I was trying to fix is actually the core component of who I am. And then I did a load more research. For instance, about 40%, between 35 and 45% of people who have autism also get PTSD, whereas in the typical population, it's only 3 or 4%. Why is this? Because folk who have autism are living a life in a neurotypical world where daily they are told, you too much, you too direct, you too different, you too weird. I was told I was stupid, pathetic, useless. So we are constantly emotionally abused. So many of us are, huge percentage-wise, 40% of people with autism develop complex PTSD, while there's only 3 or 4% of the typical population develop PTSD. It's a huge difference because we're living in a world that is so, teases, mocks, shames, all of the emotional abuse and neglects, instead of finding ways to be able to support folk who are autistic. So understanding that in myself and understanding that I need accommodations for life to actually function has so reduced to the point frequently of eliminated complex PTSD in me. And now I'm just working through autistic traits. But let's go through and see different things that are similar or different, so you can get a sense of what the difference is between, let's say, PTSD here and autism here, and in the middle both. So, for instance, there may be a lack of interest in peers. You might have a lack of interest. I know for myself, when I had my year of intensive complex PTSD, I withdrew. I didn't tell any of my friends I was suicidal. I didn't tell any of my friends I was hallucinating. I've since learned, oh God, I wish I'd remembered the statistic of the number of folk, that quite a few people get diagnosed with schizophrenia, but actually they have autism. It's like 30 or 40%. It's high. And I was having a lot of hallucinations. Nobody knew because I was withdrawing. And so I thought that was just PTSD, social withdrawal, because you feel ashamed of who you are and what's going through. In autism, there's just generally anxiety and feeling anxious and avoiding social relationships because they feel so uncomfortable, because often you get judged for who you are. There are so many times that I've gone into social situations and you see people going, oh, because I just launch into a deep conversation, interesting conversation, I'm direct about something, and people are just like, oh, that's a bit inappropriate. Like today, oh my God. So funny. A teacher calls from the school and he's saying, oh, on the register next to everybody's names, there are little letters. And like on one kid, there's an L, and it means that English is a second language. On another kid, there's a B. And I'm like, oh, what does the B mean? And he's like, oh, no, I don't want to tell you, because then La might be able to, my son, identify who that is. And I said, doesn't mean bisexual. And then he's like, Oh God, how can I say that? I can feel myself going red, because it's like, what maths teacher needs to know that the child is bisexual? That's, that isn't something a teacher needs to know. And he's like, no, it's not that. It's something to do with education. I was just cringing. Like, why would I say that to a teacher? Anyway, so that sort of thing comes out. Like, one friend of mine said, oh, meet my weird friend, because that's just the sort of thing that comes out of me. Okay. In terms of emotional processing, in PTSD, because of the hypervigilance, there is viewing the world with a lot of paranoia, criticism, because of the hyperactivity. Hyperactivity changes our lens to see the world with more doom, like life isn't fair, things are going to go wrong, it's scary, it's unsafe, so we're a lot more paranoid. And we feel scared to share that because it's so dark that we don't want to impact. And sometimes we flood out what we're feeling with others because we just have got no capacity for regulation because it's so overwhelming. In autism, we experience feelings in a big way, but sometimes we will shut down or melt down because of alexithymia, where we don't notice what we're feeling, and then we struggle to name the feeling and express it. So there's a deficit in noticing and expressing the feeling. In PTSD, there's an extreme intensity of the feeling that just becomes overwhelming. So we may shut down, or it becomes intense. All right. In terms of play, both as a child, as an adult, there might be repetitive play. In PTSD, it might be more intrusive memories that are being acted out. So issues are being played out in role play again and again. Whereas with autism, it's repetitive use of objects. As an adult, for me, when I had PTSD, I struggled a lot to engage with play because I felt so deregulated. And I found a lot, it depends on if an autistic person finds something that is that they love, like gaming, or I've got a friend who's autistic who does a lot of mushroom picking and running workshops that she finds a lot of fun. I do, which I find fun, things like this, of sharing information. But I also like pretty controlled games, like, childhood games, because it gives me a level of structure that I know what's going to happen, and I know the steps involved. So it's less of just being released into an unknown. Then in terms of outbursts, people who have PTSD will get more irritable, angry, frustrated about small things because it triggers memories of larger things. Whereas in autism, there may be more inflexibility around routines and wanting things to be same. So if you have planned something and then change, there might be an outburst because in autism, there's a struggle with directionality. So if you are going one way, you have it all planned out. That gives security. When you change the plan, there's a confusion, and that can often create an outburst. And then there's sleep difficulties. For PTSD, that's because there's intrusive thoughts, nightmares, flashbacks, hypervigilance, so you can't fall asleep, or waking up with jolts or feeling like you're dropping or falling, and then unable to get back to sleep. And it's very associated with autism, and a lot of folk who are autistic have sleep issues because of autism. Somebody says they recognize that conversational inappropriateness. My mom was constantly embarrassed and ashamed of my mom. My mother was too. And you know what? There's a friend of mine who I share with about my silly antics of what I say that gets my foot in my mouth. And I kind of like it because it's refreshing, it's real, and I really like being me, and I love saying, I love being real instead of this kind of fake niceness and then backbiting, passive aggressive. I hate that. So being real is just a delight. And, sometimes people find it, weird. So I think at the start I said this, I'll just tell you this one story that kind of shares that inappropriateness. Sometimes when folk who are autistic, and this is what I was saying about the hallucinations or fantasies, sometimes when people are autistic, their brain isn't necessarily connecting, and so they lose words of what they're wanting to say, and they can't think of the words, and so their brain shows the words in a different way. I'll give you an example. I had a friend who was scapegoating me, and to my face, he was apologizing, but then he was going behind my back and backstabbing me. And I couldn't get as I was listening to voice messages from him, I couldn't get what the word was of what was going on. And I opened my eyes, and in front of me in the lounge, flew across the lounge this, I'm going to have to use a different word because of senses. So an aubergine, of male anatomy, flew across that had like veins and everything with honey dripping off it. And I was just like watching in front of me. And then I was like, oh, honey-coated dick. So I said to him, oh, I get it. You're being like a honey-coated dick where you are being sweet and nice, but actually you're being, I've just said that with the word. So this video might never get shown to anybody because it might be hidden because I used that word. But he just said you're being sexually inappropriate. And I was like, no, I wasn't at all. I was just commenting on your behavior. And then I was able to click and go, oh, that's a double bind. Because even though I've studied psychology, I knew the word, but it just didn't click because I was so stressed. When people are treating you with a double bind, you have burnout, breakdown, your brain doesn't think, you get stressed and sick. All of that was going on. And so my brain just didn't work. And so in autism, often when your brain stops working, you can hallucinate. And that's why a lot of people who are autistic falsely get diagnosed with schizophrenia. And I never wanted to tell anybody that I was having these hallucinations because I didn't feel like it was schizophrenia. I felt like it was a benefit to me. And it was really helpful for me. Even the very violent hallucinations, I felt like were messages from my soul, and they transformed my healing process. So, but that also happens in PTSD, where people can hallucinate. So it is often in my most stressful times where I guess PTSD is arising, where I'm not understanding how and why people are treating me in a certain way, that I will have these hallucinations. And I really miss them when they're gone. So those are the difference between autism and trauma. And a lot of people, like I say, 35 to 45% who are autistic also have PTSD. And it's excessively high. And we as a world need to improve how we are relating to folk who are neurodiverse so that the rates of PTSD will go down in people. And that's because of the levels of emotional abuse towards people who are autistic. So I hope that helps, and I am sending you love. Oh, yes, if you have gone through trauma, adversity, bullying, and you don't know how to heal, I am doing a call this weekend on the steps and stages or the healing journey. We'll be looking at like the paradox of safety, that you both need safety, but you need to leave the safety for the healing journey, and a few other things that I think will really serve folk who are on the recovery journey from abuse or trauma. And I think that the link is above. So you're welcome to sign up. It's pay whatever you feel. You can decide. Let me try and remember the thing. There we go. I think it's that. Fingers crossed. I haven't checked the link, but it should be that. Hope you can come and join us. We'd love to have you there. I'm on a mission to do a live video every day for 1 month. So it will be a random time when I remember. I am glad that I remembered today. I have an accountability partner, and we nudge each other every day to make sure that we each are going live. So I will carry on going live for 30 days. I'm sending you love, and I hope this has been helpful. Bye.